Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to the BlackUSA.News morning show. My name is Donnie Glover, and today we're going to talk with my new friend. His name is Ken. He's out in Nevada, and he's with the Urban Chamber of Commerce. Ken, how are you? Ken Evans.
I'm doing very well. Glad to be up here bright and early, visiting with individuals from the East Coast as well as the West Coast.
Well, what time is it out there?
It's about 7 a.m. here, so start my day early. Got a full day ahead, but it's all good.
Okay, now can you run the Urban Chamber?
Yes, I do. Been here about 7.5. It'll be 8 years in September. Been a great journey working with individuals that are trying to realize their dream of entrepreneurism and business ownership. So great to be here.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for your service. You retired from the United States Army Reserve. You served in
Air Force.
I'm sorry, United States Air Force Reserve. I was so geeked on my introduction, but you served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you had to build facilities, multi-million-dollar facilities, from what I read. And you weren't just there a short time; you were there for a minute.
Absolutely. Typically, the Air Force rotations were anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So I was in Iraq for about 4 months and Afghanistan for 6 months, plus the lead-in training you did. But from a experience standpoint as an engineer, it was a great experience for me. I like to tell people that if I could do development and construction and project management in Afghanistan and before that Iraq, and probably do it anywhere.
So, Afghanistan, nobody's beaten Afghanistan. Nobody's beat them before, correct?
That is correct. In fact, one of the things I definitely noticed, I was based out of Bagram Air Base, and what I can definitely tell you is that the environment, the land is some of the most austere land or environment that I've ever seen. And you can tell the Russians were frustrated because essentially when they figured out that they couldn't hold on or take over to the land permanently, they basically mined everything and it's kind of like putting salt in the fertile soil so nobody else can use it. That's essentially, from my perspective, what happened in Afghanistan. But definitely a challenging environment, but we were able to do some great things while we were over there. I was over there during the summer surge of 2010, and as such, my engineering unit was responsible for creating the co-located bases and the forward operating bases that the Army used as their platform, primarily in the eastern part of the country, to do some of the operations that they did. So that was a great experience for me, again, as a military engineer, learning how to do master planning, design work, construction management, and overall lead, because I was a civil engineering commander there. So it was just a great experience for me as an engineer as well as a leader.
Now, you said a great experience. I'm just glad you made it home. Let's be clear. You were in a war zone, Afghanistan, an undefeated country. And their terrain, and I was in Jordan back in 2002, as the U.S. was about to invade Iraq as a journalist with some other Black journalists. The terrain, Ken, we have not seen that kind of terrain. It was not Vietnam. Ken, they got caves that they live in the caves, and the caves, we don't get it here. The caves provide shelter and air, like air conditioning come the summertime.
Yeah, your point is definitely valid. Very challenging terrain, especially in Afghanistan. You're absolutely correct. So it made doing construction, it made doing master planning a really big challenge. But at the same time, when I say it was a great experience, you're absolutely correct. The most important thing I did, and I don't mind sharing it here, is especially in Afghanistan, when my people were a little bit more exposed, I said a prayer for me to take my people over there and bring them all back safely. And there were definitely some challenging times over there. even myself, I know what rockets sound like up close. Unfortunately, so yeah, it was definitely a combat zone experience. At the same time, I'll keep it in perspective. I wasn't in the Army or the Marines, and in some cases, some of my Air Force personnel that were a little bit more exposed. But yes, you never forgot that you were in a combat zone. But again, it was a great experience because if we could do real estate development type activities, as well as, in my case, be a leader in that kind of environment, I like to think it prepared me to be a leader in some of the other challenging situations I've been in, even here at the Urban Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, but I still say it takes a lot of guts to go over there. I got to throw in this one last thing. I was climbing this sand dune in Jordan.
Mhm.
Now, I've never seen a sand dune. I flew over the Sahara. I looked down at the desert for 3 hours. But I tried to climb the sand dune. I found myself down on all fours trying to climb the sand dune. And this Jordanian, about 100 feet behind me in flip-flops, ran past me like Jesse Owens up the sand dune. And I'm saying our soldiers are going to have a problem.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'll talk about Iraq for a minute. One day, I was a commander in Iraq too, and one day, I always believed in leadership by example and making sure that, despite my rank, from time to time I would do things. So I always had an appreciation for what my frontline uh, military personnel were doing. So one day in Iraq, literally went out and laid concrete, and they were like, "Sir, you sure you want to do this?" Because it was slated to be 115, 120, and I said, "Nope, I'm going to do this. I need to experience what they experienced." So to your point, physical activity in 110, 120-degree weather or more, that's a definite challenge. And, especially for those of us that are coming from areas where it's not as hot. But to your point, the individuals that are from there, they become accustomed to that. And it is what it is. But yes, some interesting environments over there.
The only thing I wanted to add was that your soldiers, they carry 75-pound backpacks.
Yeah, in our case in the Air Force, it's a little bit different. We typically don't carry that much gear. However, when we're doing construction in environments that, well, in a combat zone, sometimes we have to still wear all the protective gear. So I will mention, there was another situation, again, trying to make sure that I understood what my troops were going through. We needed to do an outside the wire survey for a possible market that we wanted to set up as part of interacting with the local population in Iraq. And in order to do that, we needed to gear up. And once again, if I was going to have my people out there, I wanted to kind of check things out. So absolutely, 120, 125-degree weather. And I had all my battle gear on, and so did they. And yeah, that gear is when you get the helmet, the protective vest, and everything else on, plus your regular uniforms. It's about 35, 40 pounds of extra gear on, and in 120-degree weather. Again,
How,
that's another experience that I won't forget.
how
But
am
it
I
made me appreciate it.
how I'm gonna catch the dude in the flip flops? That's what I'm trying to figure out. He's already running past me in flip flops, and I haven't even crossed the sand yet. I just find it, you had insurmountable odds, but let's parlay that to the United States. I shared with you earlier before the show started, how we're having a minority business enterprise rally right here in the city of Baltimore as we speak. And the war, the enemy this time is our own country. There's some who are veterans. They did all of the right things. They served the country. They put their lives on the line only to come back home to open a business. I just don't understand why you got to prove that you're black, how much you got to go through to prove that you're black to get the MBE status, only to get the MBE status and still get treated like a stepchild It makes some people say to hell with the MBE program altogether. Have you any experience with that, Mr. Evans?
I do interact with individuals that are MBE certified as well as other certifications. One thing from an approach standpoint, here's what I would like to suggest. We tell individuals here at the Urban Chamber of Commerce, we definitely encourage them to get the certifications, but what we like to suggest to them is let the certification be an enhancement. What we prefer for them to do is to focus on and lead with their technical and professional credentials and qualifications, and then let the certification be an enhancement to that. So from my standpoint, I've seen that the certifications can and do help, but at the same time, it's not a substitute for overcoming some of the challenges that you just mentioned. I can definitely tell you as a veteran myself, and we do have some veteran-owned business owners here, in particular African-American veterans, it is a little bit frustrating. For example, when we look at some of the things that have happened recently, I'm just going to tell you right now, I posted to Facebook something that essentially said, I'm a 25 plus year veteran. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And finally, I consider myself to be a patriot. And what happened on January 6th to me was unacceptable because at one point in time, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. So I will never forget that. In some respects, I'll never forget that oath, even as a retired veteran. In terms of treatment, yes, it has been unfortunate that even as veterans, we serve our country, and then we come back and sometimes we're not treated with the same level of respect and civility that we expect other countries to adhere to when we're over there protecting their interests. So from my standpoint, I just think that's something we need to work on moving forward, is making sure that America, and as Americans, we live up to the ideals of the founders.
Ken, are you running for president or something? I mean, that sounds nice, but considering some of your soldiers, you may have been in situations where you couldn't bring them all home. But then for you to come home and for America in 2021 to see January 6th, I know we're getting off the beaten path, but how do you stay optimistic, and why haven't you lost your cool? Why haven't you lost your mind? You dealt with Iraq, you dealing with domestic terrorists that go back to the Klan, and that's stressful too.
Yeah, you ask a good question, and to a certain extent make a good point. Let me answer that in two parts. First and foremost, in terms of dealing with it in a cool, calm, collected manner, one thing I learned from my experience in Iraq and then Afghanistan, or just in general in my military career from a leadership standpoint, is it is important to remain cool, calm, and collected, even when inside you may be either raging or going through some other emotions. It's important, especially as a leader, to remain cool, calm, and collected despite the situation so that you can remain focused on the mission, which leads to the second part of this. The bottom line is our mission as an urban chamber of commerce, as well as our mission as business owners and entrepreneurs, is to stay focused on economic development and going after procurement opportunities, executing them, and then being in a position to do three things. Number one, provide employment opportunities. Number two, put the resources from our businesses back into the community. And then number three, participate in political engagement. But it's hard to do that if you let your emotions and in some cases your ego get in the way of doing that. So I guess what I would like to say is I'm a very mission-driven individual, and our mission at the Urban Chamber of Commerce is to educate, advocate, and position our businesses for political engagement and procurement opportunities so that they can compete and succeed.
What's the big industry in Nevada?
Right now, it's hospitality, and traditionally it's been hospitality and tourism. In fact, the statistics suggest that we're around 40 to 45% as a state of our gross domestic product is in hospitality and tourism. which leads to a point that I'd like to make. One of the things that we've been doing as the Urban Chamber, even prior to COVID, is stressing the importance of diversifying and expanding our economy here. It's not that we don't respect and appreciate the traditional industry, but at the same time, if Nevada is going to have a more resilient economy, then we do need to diversify and expand our economy. At the same time, another priority for the Urban Chamber is to make sure that small, diverse businesses, which definitely includes African-American owned businesses, participate in the economy's expansion and diversification.
How so? What do you foresee them doing?
Here's what I know is happening. In some cases, we've already started the journey, whether in terms of bolstering our healthcare industry or in information technology, in particular cybersecurity, and now more recently artificial intelligence. Those are a couple of areas that we've already made some strides towards diversifying our economy. At the same time, what I foresee is a very big focus moving forward on renewable energy, whether it's the production of renewable energy or at the same time getting more and more into electric vehicles. The bottom line is these represent some great opportunities to diversify and expand our economy, while at the same time making sure that we create some opportunities for small, diverse businesses. For example, at the Urban Chamber of Commerce, we have an information technology or IT roundtable, which has allowed us over the past 4+ years to do what I talked about earlier. We connect our small, diverse businesses to strategic thought leaders and executives in the IT world. And then in turn, our business owners and entrepreneurs, they in some cases, at a minimum, build some relationships, but in a maximum, several of them have successfully got some contracts and progressively larger and larger procurement opportunities.
So for those of us not very familiar, and by the way, the time I spent in Nevada, I learned about Kincaid's Cave. I'm a Black history nut.
Okay.
And I found out that the Egyptians were out there in Kincaid's Cave, out there in the Grand Canyon somewhere, a whole bunch of Egyptian artifacts.
That's news to me, but it doesn't surprise me.
Well, you know, they got the Luxor Hotel.
Correct.
So my understanding is it's based on the Luxors. The whole idea came from the findings in Kincaid's Cave. They found Egyptian artifacts going back centuries.
Okay. Like I said, that's news to me, and maybe another excuse. I've been here 30+ years now, but you're bringing something to my attention that may mean I need to make another trip to the Grand Canyon area.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you. Is solar energy big in Nevada, considering you have a lot of room for panels, for solar panels?
What I would say is it's a growing industry. In Nevada, we're fortunate. We actually have 300+ sun days, which is a considerable amount. So right there is a great opportunity for us. More recently, whether it's our major utility provider or other smaller entrepreneur type situations, more and more we're getting into the production of solar energy as a key factor in terms of providing renewable energy to both residential and commercial customers. So definitely, as we move forward, that's going to be more and more of a prominent part of our economy.
Okay. What else is on? What else do you see as potential industries for people that may want to move? I mean, a lot of people are moving these days, and Nevada is, Arizona. I hear a lot about Scottsdale. How's the synergy out there? What's the industry?
It's very good. Very quick thing I want to note is the fact that Las Vegas and just the Southern Nevada region is becoming more and more of a logistics hub. To aid that, for example, I-15 is being developed between Las Vegas and Phoenix. In addition to that, we're along route, I believe it's the highway that goes from Mexico to Canada. So that makes us a Southwest regional hub in terms of logistics. So that's coming into more and more prominence. In addition to that, another area where I anticipate and others anticipate we have room for growth and will grow is advanced manufacturing. More and more companies are seeing the Southern Nevada region as well as the Northern Nevada region as a place to consider putting large warehouse type functions into Nevada, but then at the same time, couple that with opportunities to do some advanced manufacturing. So between logistics and advanced manufacturing, I think those are two areas that will be emerging places to consider procurement and entrepreneur opportunities.
So is there synergy between the Urban Chamber of Commerce there in Nevada and say the Dallas Chamber, one of the oldest Black chambers in the country, or your neighbors in California?
Yes, there is. In fact, one thing I want to say is thank you to Ron Busby at the U.S. Black Chambers. I had been in this position about 6 months or so, and I actually had the opportunity to go to my first U.S. Black Chambers National Conference, as well as they had a training or chamber development portion, which helped me as a relatively new Chamber of Commerce executive. So that brought us together. And since then, absolutely, we've had opportunities to partner. In fact, we interacted with the Houston Black Chamber. We've also interacted with the Ohio, one of the chambers of commerce from Ohio. And here's a vision that I've had, and I'm a pretty strategic thinker and executioner. In fact, I tell people, I ask them, I'll say, do you play chess? And I say, yes, I play chess. In my case, in fact, I play corporate chess. Well, here's a vision. Imagine if we could strengthen our chambers of commerce, especially our Black chambers of commerce across the country in the major urban population centers like Chicago, Detroit, and Atlanta, or in other cases like here in Nevada. We're not in the majority, but we still have a significant population. So imagine if we had chambers that could provide an economic development entity that could collaborate, create opportunities for us to not only develop our chambers, but more importantly, develop a network of our business owners and entrepreneurs across the country, as well as global, because I think there are a lot of opportunities globally as well.
Wow. So what's your industry? What are you into?
Personally, I'm a degreed civil engineer, graduated from the Air Force Academy in '85. So I've got 25, 30 years of experience doing real estate development, a little bit of design work, quite a bit of project management. And then along the way, I developed a background in finance as well, which all came together to help me do real estate development. So that's how I think. And I think long term, once my tenure here at the Chamber is completed, I'll get back into doing real estate development, both from a commercial standpoint as well as from a residential standpoint.
So what are you most proud of in your tenure there at the Urban Chamber?
It's something that I shared with you just prior to us going on air. And again, I'm going to go back to Ron Busby and give him credit for bringing us together. To me, the most important thing that I can do as a Chamber of Commerce leader is create million-dollar companies. Now, since being here, what I've discovered is that if you pull the SBA statistics, on average, smaller businesses usually bring in about 50 to 60,000 in annual revenue. I didn't realize when I put the goal out there, but initially when I came to the Chamber, and even now, there's a part of me that feels like if we can create and help our smaller companies or our startup companies become million-dollar companies, again, I go back to what I mentioned before. They can hire people, they can put their company resources back into the community, and then last but not least, they can participate in political engagement. Well, my biggest accomplishment is I have been able to work with some of our companies, and they started out as small business members, but they are now what I call organic corporations, meaning they have grown. Several of them have grown to be million-dollar companies, and they are doing the three things that I mentioned. So that's by far my greatest accomplishment, I think.
What do you think about and I'm not going to ask you about the trial. I mean, anybody can look and see how egregious Derek Chauvin's actions are. But as a result of this trial, and we know they already paid the George Floyd family $27 million. What I'm getting to is the Black Businesses Matter protest. That's the undercurrent that I see in some places as the undercurrent. Do you think things will get better? Do you think we'll make progress?
Yes,
Or
I do. Yeah, forgive me for hopping right in, but yes,
please.
I do. Because you were asking me earlier about how do I remain optimistic. I'll tell you why I remain optimistic. A couple of reasons. First and foremost, someone that I definitely read a lot of books on, as well as studied leadership. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that although we may face temporary defeat, we must never lose infinite hope and optimism. So we have to keep moving forward. In addition to that, something I share from time to time is, as Black people and African Americans, or even Africans that have immigrated here, the bottom line is we're the descendants of our ancestors who survived the Middle Passage, chattel slavery, which by far was the most brutal form here in America, Jim Crow, Reconstruction, mass incarceration, and even some of the things that we face and see today. But the bottom line is we not only survived those experiences, but we thrive and continue to go to greater heights. So for me, that's something we must never forget, and we must draw strength from that. And it's incumbent upon those of us that consider ourselves to be leaders that we don't forget it, number one, but just as important, that we inspire and motivate others to move forward as well. Now, specific to what you mentioned about business, to me, it's unfortunate some of the things that have happened. In fact, I'll just tell you, I thought what happened with George Floyd, totally unacceptable. Okay, that's not why I served. I served so we would treat people better than that. But what I would suggest is, now that capital and other procurement opportunities are being made available to us, we need to seize these opportunities and make sure that we position ourselves to move forward. The final thing that I'll share is that part of the reason why I'm heartened is because of our next generation. We have a next generation of African American brothers and sisters that they're about their business, quite simply. They're energetic, they do respect and consult their elders, but by and large, they bring some energy to the table that I think will move us forward.
Good deal. Any final thoughts? Thank you for taking time out of your busy morning, 7 o'clock in the morning out there. You're better than me, bud.
Hey, I do what I have to do. My final thoughts are, first of all, thank you, Donnie, for affording me this opportunity. Thank you again to Ron Busby for the presence that he has nationally, while at the same time he's impacting us here locally. My final thought would be, let's make sure that we as Black business owners and entrepreneurs, African American entrepreneurs and business owners, whichever term you choose to take, let's make sure that we do the things necessary to compete and succeed despite what's going on in this country. My last word is this, as a retired veteran, is I did not serve all the years that I served for us to have or allow a racially tinged socioeconomic apartheid system to happen here in America. Part of that will mean that we have to make sure that we do the things necessary to move forward and build relationships and strategic alliances that allow us to further our economic development mission, not only domestically, but globally as well, because part of what I want my legacy to be is reconnecting what was torn asunder 400 plus years ago. Bottom line, we need to reconnect to our motherland. I think if we do those things, And we never lose sight of the fact that within us is some inner strength that survived all the things that I mentioned before. I think we'll be in a position to move forward. And when it's all said and done, compete and succeed, plus make sure that generations coming behind us can do the same for the individual and collective benefit of us all. So thanks again. I appreciate this opportunity.
Ken, you have taught me a big lesson. Stay cool, stay calm. I don't know. When I see the racists scaling the walls of the Capitol, I'm not feeling all Martin Luther King-y at the time.
Again, those that follow me on Facebook know that I immediately posted something. Those that have followed me in the military in particular, I used to always brief them. If I say it's unacceptable, that means I'm not happy. But if I put unacceptable in capital letters or say that, that means, to your point, I wasn't feeling all kingy either. But again, one of the things we learn in the military, and you can learn it in other environments as well, is that the best thing you can do in times of conflict and controversy is keep a cool head. And again, that's something else that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said too, is the true measure of a man is not how he conducts himself or herself in convenience. It's in times of controversy and conflict that you pay attention to. So I hope that we all would keep the ultimate economic development mission in mind, be mission focused, be mission driven, and remain cool, calm, and collected enough to move that forward. Doesn't mean you're not upset and don't have emotion. It just means that you don't let that get in the way of getting the mission done.
How can people get in touch with you, Lieutenant Colonel Ken Evans?
Ken Evans is fine, but if you want to contact us at the Urban Chamber of Commerce, 702-648-6222. Again, that's 702-648-6222. Or you can always use our mailbox, info at urbanchamber.org. That's info@urbanchamber.org. And for all of you on social media, you can follow us at Urban Chamber on Twitter. On Facebook, we're Urban Chamber of Commerce -Nevada. And then, yes, we're on the Instagram, or the gram, as the young folks say. On Instagram, we're Urban Chamber of Commerce. So you can always follow us on social media as well. So again, thank you very much, Donnie. I appreciate this opportunity. Ron Busby, I appreciate this opportunity as well.
Good deal. Folks, we'll be back later on tonight, 7 p.m. Thank you again, Ken Evans. Very proud of you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for leading. And thank you for teaching me to be cool, calm, and collective under fire.
Hey, feelings mutual. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Black USA.